The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and frustration when Roger Whitman leaned back in his leather chair and said it. Anyone can manage accounts, Audrey. Don't think you're special. You're replaceable. He tapped his expensive pen against the mahogany table, waiting for me to break. I didn't. I just smiled, closed my notebook with deliberate calm, and stood up. The other executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, avoiding eye contact. Roger's smirk widened, thinking I'd given up without a fight. He had no idea that Axiom Global, our $30 million anchor account, had my personal cell number saved under family in their phones. He didn't know about the Sunday dinners with their CFO's wife, or how I'd talked their CEO through his daughter's college crisis at 2 a.m. when no one else would answer. Roger thought clients belonged to companies like furniture belonged to offices. He was about to learn they belonged to people who earn their trust. As I reached for the door handle, I turned back once. You're right, Roger. Anyone can manage accounts. But not everyone can keep them. The room went dead quiet. Roger's pen stopped moving. His expression shifted, just for a second. Something in my voice had made him wonder if he'd made a terrible miscalculation. I'm Audrey Stone, and this is the story of how one man's arrogance destroyed a company he thought he could control. Roger thought relationships were just entries in a database, but he never understood that trust can't be transferred with a simple password reset. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one who knows exactly when to leave. Stay with me. This gets interesting. 8 years ago, I'd started at Cromwell Communications as a junior account manager with big dreams and empty pockets. Now I ran their biggest division, managing 6 major accounts worth $70 million in annual revenue. Axiom Global alone brought in $30 million yearly. I'd built that relationship from absolute scratch, starting with a cold call that turned into a 2-hour conversation about sailing and life. Their CEO, Thomas Brennan, and I discovered we both raced catamarans on weekends and shared a love for the ocean. That first contract started small, just $200,000. 7 years later, it was our biggest account and still growing. My other clients followed similar patterns. Real human connections that became professional gold over time. But to anyone looking at spreadsheets and quarterly reports, it just looked like lucky numbers. Then Pinnacle Holdings bought us out. They were a private equity firm that specialized in optimization and efficiency enhancement. The announcement promised nothing would change, that we'd maintain our culture. Within a week, Roger Whitman arrived like a storm. He was their turnaround specialist, wearing suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent. From day one, I knew we were in serious trouble. He walked through our office like he was touring a museum of outdated practices and quaint traditions. He took notes on everything, talked to no one. Roger wasn't here to understand our business. He was here to completely reshape it. Roger's first all-hands meeting confirmed my worst fears. He clicked through slides about efficiency metrics and redundancy elimination, barely looking at the team. Cromwell has been running on handshakes and friendships, he announced. That ends now. We're implementing processes that any trained professional can execute. My assistant, Monica, leaned over. He doesn't understand this industry at all. I stayed quiet, watching. Roger explained his new structure. Account managers would become interchangeable. Everything would be scripted, automated, templated. Personal relationships create dangerous dependencies, he said, staring right at me. What happens when someone leaves? The client should stay with the company, not follow the person. People glanced my way. Everyone knew I had the deepest client connections. After the meeting, I approached him by the coffee machine. Those relationships drive our renewals, I said. Axiom Global specifically chose us because Axiom Global contracts with Cromwell, not you, he interrupted. His tone was dismissive, final. I nodded slowly. Now I knew exactly who I was dealing with. A man who saw people as replaceable parts in a machine he didn't understand. Roger wasted no time making changes. First, he hired 3 new account executives, fresh graduates with impressive resumes and no experience. He assigned them as shadows to senior managers. They were supposedly learning, but I caught one of them, Bradley, photographing my client contact lists when he thought I was at lunch. Then came the new protocols. Every client interaction had to be logged in a new system with specific tags. Personal notes were banned. "We need professional boundaries," Roger insisted. The breaking point came with his communication policy. All client contact had to go through company channels. Personal phone numbers were to be surrendered to the company database. That night, I called Brooke, a lawyer friend. "Can they force me to give up relationships I built myself?" "Depends on your contract," she said. "How were these relationships established? Who paid for the meetings?" I found my employment agreement from 8 years ago. There it was, clear as day. Client relationships developed through personal networks remained mine unless explicitly transferred in writing. I'd negotiated that clause myself, never thinking I'd need it. Now it might save everything I'd built. The next morning, I started documenting everything. Every client relationship, how it started, what I'd invested personally. The sailing lessons I'd paid for to connect with Thomas. The conference in Miami I'd attended on my own dime. The weekend gatherings at my house where real deals happened. Not one receipt linked to company money. Roger grew bolder daily. He scheduled himself into my client meetings without asking. He introduced Bradley as my co-manager on the Axiom account. Succession planning, he called it. But I knew better. They were trying to copy my relationships before pushing me out. Thursday afternoon, Thomas Brennan called my personal cell. "Audrey, who's this Bradley person sending me LinkedIn requests? Says he's your partner." "Roger's bringing in new people," I said carefully. "Temporary changes." There was silence. Then Thomas laughed, but not in a good way. His email mentioned synergistic optimization opportunities. What does that even mean? "I honestly don't know," I admitted. "Audrey, I don't like this. We chose Cromwell because of you. If you're not happy there." He didn't finish, but the message was clear. Where I went, Axiom would follow. Friday afternoon, Roger summoned me to his corner office. Bradley was already there, laptop ready, wearing Roger's same smug expression like a mask. "We're restructuring the Axiom global team effective Monday," Roger announced without preamble. "Bradley takes over all daily operations. You'll transition to an advisory role only." I kept my face completely neutral despite my racing heart. Axiom specifically requested continuity with their current team structure. "Axiom wants results," Roger said dismissively. "Bradley's analytical approach will modernize the relationship and increase efficiency." "Have you discussed this with Thomas Brennan?" I asked calmly. Roger's jaw tightened visibly. "I don't need permission to manage my own company's resources." His company, not ours. The message was deliberately clear. "I'll need this directive in writing," I said evenly. "For the transition documentation and legal compliance." Roger nodded to Bradley, who immediately started typing frantically. "You'll have it within the hour via email." I stood to leave, then paused at the door purposefully. "Roger, Axiom's contract renewal is next month. They're extremely particular about changes." "That's precisely why we're doing this now," he replied confidently. "Bradley will lock in better terms and longer commitment." Walking back to my desk, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Roger had no idea what he'd just set in motion. Some mistakes you can fix with an apology. Others destroy everything you've built. That weekend, I worked from home, systematically pulling every personal file and private correspondence with clients. Years of birthday cards, family photos, text messages about their kids' graduations and achievements. None of it belonged to Cromwell Communications. It belonged to the relationships I'd carefully built over time. Then I made a comprehensive list. 6 major clients, 70 million in combined revenue. 4 of those contracts had specific escape clauses for significant changes in account management. I'd negotiated those clauses myself years ago, knowing how unstable our industry could be. Sunday evening, Thomas called again, sounding agitated. "Audrey, Bradley's emailing about restructuring our entire service model. What's really happening over there?" I chose my words very carefully. "Pinnacle Holdings is implementing their changes." "I don't work with Pinnacle Holdings," Thomas said firmly and loudly. "I work with you, Audrey. If you're not running our account, we have serious problems." Can you wait until Monday before making any decisions? I asked hopefully. For you? Of course. But Audrey, I meant what I said earlier. Without you, we're completely done with Cromwell. After we hung up, I stared at my laptop screen for a long time. 6 clients for escape clauses, one decision that would change absolutely everything. Roger thought he held all the cards in this game. He was about to learn that in relationship businesses, the cards choose their own hands. Monday morning arrived cold and harsh, matching my mood perfectly. My office access card didn't work at the main entrance. Security had to call Roger to let me in, which took 15 minutes. System upgrade, Roger explained when I finally reached my desk, not meeting my eyes. New cards tomorrow for everyone. But Bradley already had his shiny new card. The meeting invitation landed at 9 sharp like a summons. Account transition planning, mandatory. Required attendees included Roger, Bradley, 2 HR representatives, and me. Optional attendees included every senior manager in the company. They wanted an audience for my public humiliation. I accepted and added one line. We'll bring necessary documentation for review. At 10:30, I walked into a packed conference room with my folder. 23 people had come to watch the show. Roger stood at the presentation screen with Bradley beside him, ready with a thick slide deck. Audrey, Roger began, his tone condescending and false. We appreciate your years of dedicated service, but it's time to evolve beyond personality-driven sales. I opened my folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Before we continue, I need important clarification. I slid the paper across the polished table. This is my original employment agreement. Please look at Section 7 carefully. The room held its collective breath as Roger read about personal network relationships. Roger barely glanced at the document before pushing it aside. Your contract is outdated. Current company policy supersedes it. Which policy? I asked. The one you created 2 weeks ago? That's not retroactive. My lawyer confirmed that this morning. The room went silent. Roger's face flushed red. Your lawyer. Brooke Lawson. She specializes in employment law. Would you like her number? Roger slammed the folder shut. This is insubordination. This is clarification, I corrected. Now, about the transition. I'll need to see client consent forms. What consent forms? Bradley asked, confused. The ones required when transferring account management on contracts with continuity clauses. I pulled out my phone. Should I call Thomas Brennan to ask if he's signed one? Roger's composure cracked. Put that away. This is an internal meeting. Of course. I placed it face up on the table. It immediately buzzed with a text. Thomas Brennan's name appeared clearly on the screen. Everyone saw it. The tension in the room shifted. People were realizing this wasn't going according to Roger's plan. Let's discuss the timeline, Roger said quickly, trying to regain control. Bradley has prepared comprehensive transition materials. Bradley clicked to his first slide. It was my entire Axiom strategy document with his name at the top. Interesting, I said. I wrote that strategy at home, on my personal laptop, on a Sunday. How did you access it? Bradley froze. You shared it with the team. I presented it. The original lives on my personal cloud storage. So again, how did you get it? Roger intervened. Company work belongs to the company. Work done on company time with company resources, yes. This was created outside those parameters. I have the metadata to prove it. My phone buzzed again. James Harrison from Hartfield Industries. The room was watching now, understanding that something bigger was happening. We're getting off track, Roger said, his voice strained. Monica spoke up from the corner. Audrey's right. I've been here 12 years. Client consent is standard for major transitions. Roger turned on her sharply. Nobody asked for your opinion. You marked her as an optional attendee, I pointed out. That implies input is welcome. Here's what's happening, Roger said, trying to sound authoritative and in control. Bradley takes over Axiom immediately, no discussion. You have 2 weeks to transition other accounts properly. Any interference results in immediate termination for cause. I stood slowly, gathering my folder with deliberate calm. Please put that in writing. Especially the part about termination for interference. Roger gestured impatiently at Bradley, who typed frantically on his laptop. Within minutes, a document appeared on the large screen. Roger signed it digitally and sent it to my email with a click. There. Bradley runs Axiom starting right now. Thank you, I said pleasantly. I pulled out my phone and typed quickly. What are you doing? Roger demanded anxiously. Informing my clients that I'm no longer authorized to manage their accounts. Legal requirement under our service agreements, as you know. Roger reached for my phone desperately, but I'd already hit send. Group message to all 6 major clients. Please be advised that Cromwell Communications has reassigned your account management effective immediately. I am no longer authorized to act on your behalf. Please direct all communications to Roger Whitman directly. My phone exploded with responses instantly. Roger's phone started ringing urgently. Then Bradley's. Then the main reception line lit up. The symphony of ringtones filled the conference room. Fix this immediately, Roger ordered, his face turning dangerously red. I can't, I said simply and truthfully. You formally removed me from these accounts with written documentation. Any involvement would constitute interference, resulting in termination. The head of HR, Susan Wells, stood up abruptly. Roger, we need to discuss this privately. Right now, not later. We're in the middle of a crucial transition, Roger protested weakly. The transition just happened, I said helpfully. Bradley, you should probably answer Thomas. He really doesn't like being ignored. Bradley's phone was ringing nonstop, vibrating across the table. He answered with a shaky, uncertain voice. Bradley Connor, Cromwell Communications. We could all hear Thomas's booming voice clearly. Who the hell are you, and why is Audrey telling me she can't handle our account anymore? Sir, I'm your new account executive, Bradley started. No, you're absolutely not, Thomas interrupted forcefully. Put Roger Whitman on this phone. Now. Bradley looked desperately at Roger, who shook his head frantically. He's in an important meeting, sir. Then get him out of it. You have exactly 5 minutes before I call our lawyers. The line went dead with finality. Every phone in the room was now ringing simultaneously. Chaos erupted as people realized what was actually happening. Roger had just triggered something he couldn't possibly stop. Susan Wells took control. Everyone out except Roger, Audrey, and legal. The room emptied quickly, people whispering as they left. Monica squeezed my shoulder as she passed. Once the door closed, Susan turned to Roger. Do you understand what you've done? She sabotaged us, Roger said, pointing at me. She followed your written directive, Susan countered. You removed her from the accounts. She complied. Simon Grant from legal was scrolling through his phone with growing alarm. 3 clients are threatening immediate contract termination. Roger, these escape clauses are real. We could lose $40 million by end of day. That's impossible, Roger insisted. Contracts don't work that way. These do, I said quietly. I negotiated them myself. Changes in account management without consent trigger a 30-day termination option. Simon nodded grimly. She's right. I'm looking at the Axiom contract now. Section 12, paragraph 4. Roger slumped in his chair. So we reverse it. Audrey takes back the accounts. After you formally removed me with threat of termination? I asked. That would definitely be interference. The trap Roger had set for me had caught him instead. My phone rang loudly. Thomas Brennan calling. I looked at Susan questioningly. May I? She nodded immediately. I answered on speaker for everyone to hear. Thomas, I'm here with our leadership team. Audrey, what's going on? Some kid says he's my new account manager and you're being pushed out. That's correct. Roger Whitman has restructured the account teams without notice. Like hell he has, Thomas said firmly and angrily. Audrey, where are you going? If you're moving to another firm, Axiom goes with you. The room went completely, utterly still. Roger's face drained of all color. I haven't made any decisions yet, Thomas, I said carefully. Well, when you do, call me first. Roger, if you're listening, you've got exactly 24 hours to fix this mess. If Audrey's not running our account by tomorrow morning, we're exercising our termination clause immediately. He hung up with a bang. 3 more calls came in immediately after. Each client said exactly the same thing. They worked with me, not Cromwell Communications. Simon Grant cleared his throat nervously. Roger, we absolutely need Audrey to retain these accounts. Whatever it takes, whatever she wants. Roger's jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. Fine. Audrey keeps her accounts. But I wasn't done yet. This was just the beginning of Roger learning what replaceable really meant. That's not enough, I said quietly but clearly. Everyone stared at me in shock. What do you mean? Susan asked carefully. Roger publicly humiliated me, threatened my livelihood, and tried to steal my client relationships. He's created a hostile work environment. I can't effectively manage accounts under these oppressive conditions. What exactly do you want? Simon asked, pen ready. First, a written apology acknowledging that relationships developed through personal networks remain under my management permanently. Second, full autonomy over my accounts without any interference. Third, Bradley removed from any involvement with my clients immediately. Absolutely not, Roger started angrily, but Susan cut him off sharply. Roger, be quiet. Audrey, please continue. Fourth, my attorney reviews any future organizational changes affecting my role. Fifth, Roger has no input on my performance reviews or compensation decisions ever. This is blatant extortion, Roger sputtered furiously. This is negotiation, I corrected calmly. You have 23 hours before Thomas calls back. Probably much less before the others act. Simon was calculating frantically on his phone. Roger, if we lose these 6 accounts, it's not just 40 million. It's 60% of our entire portfolio. The company literally dies. Roger looked like he might be physically sick. Susan stood up decisively. Audrey, give us an hour to discuss this. Please wait in your office. I gathered my things and left calmly. In the hallway, Monica was waiting with fresh coffee and a huge smile. The whole floor heard Thomas through the phone. It was absolutely perfect. Back at my desk, I watched emails pour in relentlessly. All 6 clients had sent formal notices to Roger expressing serious concern about account changes. The threat was crystal clear without being explicit. 40 minutes later, Susan appeared with a thick document. We accept your terms with one modification. Roger remains CEO but recuses himself from all decisions regarding your division permanently. I read through carefully, taking my time. Everything I'd asked for was there, plus a substantial raise I hadn't even requested. My lawyer needs to review this thoroughly, I said. Of course. But Audrey, we need your verbal agreement to calm things down immediately. Clients are calling board members directly. I looked at the contract again thoughtfully. If Brooke approves it, I'll sign today. But Roger announces these changes to everyone. Today. In person, not email. Susan winced visibly. He won't like that at all. He doesn't have to like it. He just has to do it. For the first time that day, I genuinely smiled. Roger was about to eat his words publicly. The afternoon crawled by as lawyers worked through details. Brooke called twice with questions, then gave her approval. They're desperate, she said. You could ask for more. I got what I needed, I replied. Control and respect. At 4 o'clock, word spread that Roger would address everyone at 4:30. People gathered early, sensing something major. I sat in the middle row, Monica beside me. Roger entered looking defeated. He held a prepared statement with shaking hands. I want to address this morning's organizational changes, he began, his voice flat. After consideration and client feedback, we're maintaining current account structures. Murmurs rippled through the room. Audrey Stone will retain full management of her client portfolio with complete autonomy. Bradley Connor will be reassigned to new business development immediately. The murmurs grew louder. Everyone understood what this meant. Furthermore, Roger continued, barely audible now, client relationships developed through personal networks are valuable assets requiring careful stewardship. We apologize for this morning's confusion. He looked at me for the first time. Audrey, we value your contributions and the relationships you've built. Then he walked out, leaving Susan to field questions. The next morning, everything felt completely different. My access card worked perfectly on the first try. Roger's office door stayed firmly closed all day. Bradley cleaned out his desk before lunch, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Thomas Brennan called early, sounding much happier. Audrey, I hear order has been restored to your kingdom. Something like that, I said, laughing genuinely. Good. Let's discuss that renewal immediately. But only with you. And Audrey? We're increasing our spend by 30% minimum. Over the next week, all 6 clients renewed enthusiastically. 3 increased their commitments substantially. Axiom Global added $10 million annually without negotiation. The board was absolutely thrilled with the results. Roger remained completely invisible, taking meetings by phone only. 2 weeks later, Bradley quietly resigned without notice. His LinkedIn said he was exploring opportunities outside client services. A month later, Susan called me privately on my cell. The board meets Thursday afternoon. Roger's position is being seriously discussed. They want your input specifically. My input? I asked, surprised. You control 60% of our revenue directly. Your opinion matters more than anyone's. I thought very carefully. Roger doesn't understand service businesses at all. He'd do better in manufacturing or logistics. Susan laughed knowingly. Diplomatic. But not exactly supportive. Roger was gone by Friday afternoon. The board named Susan interim CEO while they searched for his permanent replacement. 3 months passed. Susan ran things smoothly, but the board wanted permanent leadership. She knocked on my door one afternoon, looking nervous. The board made their decision. And? They want you as CEO. I nearly dropped my coffee. Susan, I'm an account manager, not a CEO. You're a relationship builder who controls most of our revenue and just taught everyone a masterclass in negotiation. That's exactly what we need. What about you? I asked. You've been doing the job already. I prefer operations, she admitted. I'm good at systems, not vision. You have vision. Plus, every client would celebrate your appointment. I spent a week considering it. I talked to Thomas and my other clients. Called Brooke for advice. Called my mother for perspective. These weren't just clients anymore. They were partners who'd stood by me. They deserved leadership that understood business is built on trust. I accepted on one condition. Our new mission statement would start with relationships first. The board unanimously approved. Roger had called me replaceable. Now I was replacing him. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. My first all hands as CEO was nothing like Roger's. No slides about efficiency. No talk of standardization. Instead, I told stories. About Thomas Brennan and sailing lessons. About late-night calls and personal connections. Every client relationship started with someone who listened, I said. Someone who cared enough to show up when it mattered. That's not inefficient. That's irreplaceable. I announced 3 new policies. Account managers could develop relationships however worked best. We'd fund any legitimate relationship-building activity. No account would transition without client consent and a proper handover period. Monica, now my chief of staff, said she'd never seen the team more energized. You gave them permission to be human, she observed. Roger never understood that's what clients actually buy. We ended that year up 30%. Not through optimization or automation, but through investing in what Roger had tried to eliminate. A year later, at an industry conference, I saw Roger across the hotel lobby. He wore a consultant's badge for some automation software company. We made eye contact. He walked over slowly. What happened next would bring our story full circle. Audrey, Roger said stiffly. Roger. An awkward pause stretched between us. I hear Cromwell's thriving under your leadership, he said. We're doing well, I replied simply. You were right, he said suddenly. About the relationships. I didn't understand. I waited, letting him continue. I came from manufacturing, he explained. 20 years of supply chains and inventory systems. I thought everything could be systematized. Some things can, I offered. But not trust. He nodded slowly. My consulting practice is struggling. I can't seem to build client connections. Relationships take time, I said gently. You have to care about more than the contract. How do you do it? He asked, genuinely curious now. I listen more than I talk. I remember what matters to them. I show up when they need someone, not just when I need something. He actually took notes on his phone. It was surreal. I'm working with a manufacturing client who needs help with customer retention, he said. Would you consider consulting on the relationship side? The request stunned me. But Roger had learned humility. Maybe we both had. We worked out an arrangement. Roger handled operations while I trained their team on relationship management. It worked surprisingly well. Roger had learned to stay in his lane, and I'd learned that systematic thinkers had their place too. The project succeeded. The client retained 90% of their customers, up from 60. Roger sent a thank you note with one line that made everything worthwhile. I finally understand that Irreplaceable isn't about the person. It's about being personal. 6 months later, Roger called with another joint project. Then another. We became unlikely partners, each bringing different strengths. The man who'd tried to destroy what I'd built was now helping me build something bigger. I tell people about our story, Roger admitted once. About how I nearly destroyed Cromwell by removing its soul. It's my cautionary tale. What do you tell them? I asked. That in service businesses, the service is the person providing it. You can't separate the two without killing both. He learned. We'd both learned. Sometimes your biggest enemy becomes your best teacher. Roger had taught me to fight for what I'd built. I'd taught him what was worth building. 5 years have now passed since that Monday morning when Roger called me replaceable. Cromwell Communications has tripled in size. We've won awards for client retention and workplace culture. Roger's consulting firm regularly partners with us, bringing his operational expertise to complement our relationship focus. But the real victory came last month, when Roger asked me to speak at a manufacturing conference he was organizing. Tell them what you told me, he said. That relationships can't be automated. I stood before 200 executives and told our story. How Roger had tried to systematize human connection. How it had nearly destroyed everything. How we'd both learned that business is personal, whether you like it or not. Afterwards, Roger took the stage. I was the villain in that story, he admitted to the audience. I thought people were replaceable. Audrey proved that while anyone can fill a role, no one can replace a relationship. The audience gave us both standing ovations. Later, Roger found me at the bar. You know what the ironic part is, he said. What's that? I spent so much time trying to make people replaceable that I made myself irrelevant. You built relationships so strong that you became irreplaceable. He raised his glass. To learning the hard way. That toast with Roger marked a turning point, but the story had one more chapter. Last week, Thomas Brennan called with news. He was retiring and his daughter was taking over Axiom Global. She wants to meet with you personally, Thomas said. Won't sign the renewal with anyone else. I met Alexandra Brennan for coffee. She looked just like her father, same determined eyes. My dad tells this story, she began. About a marketing executive who talked him through my college meltdown at 2 a.m. Says you saved my degree and probably my life. I remembered that night. Thomas had been panicking about his daughter's depression, her threats to drop out. We had talked for 3 hours. He says you taught him that business isn't about contracts, Alexandra continued. It's about caring enough to answer the phone when it matters. She slid a folder across the table. This is our new 5-year agreement. $50 million annually. But there's a condition. I opened the folder, expecting complex terms. Instead, there was one handwritten line. Audrey Stone remains our account manager. That's not a condition, I said. That's a partnership. We shook hands. Another relationship built on trust, passed from one generation to the next. 25 Walking back to my office, after meeting Alexandra, I thought about Roger's words. How I'd made myself irreplaceable by refusing to treat relationships as replaceable. My phone had 23 messages. 3 from new clients wanting to work with the CEO who answers her own phone. 4 from my team, sharing client wins. The rest from partners and friends in the industry. Each message represented a relationship, a connection that no system could replicate. Back in my office, I found Roger's original presentation from 5 years ago. Someone had framed it as a joke gift. The slide that said, "Personal relationships create dangerous dependencies," was highlighted. I kept it on my wall as a reminder. Roger had been half right. Personal relationships do create dependencies. But that's not dangerous. That's the whole point. We depend on each other. We show up for each other. We build something together that none of us could build alone. The phone rang. Another client, another conversation, another chance to prove that in a world of automation and artificial everything, the most powerful connection is still human connection. Anyone can be replaceable if you treat them that way. But when you invest in people, when you build real relationships, when you show up when it matters, that's when you discover the truth Roger learned too late. The only thing truly irreplaceable is someone who makes others feel irreplaceable too. So that's my story. What would you have done? Craving more secrets, lies, and betrayal? This is just the beginning. Hit subscribe. You won't believe what comes next.